Welcome, my emerging expat. You're tuned in to Let's Move to Portugal. I'm producer Dan, and I have the distinct honor of bringing you YouTube travelers and our resident Portugal experts, Expats Everywhere's Josh and Kalie. Each week, they'll inspire, they'll educate, and they'll accompany you on your journey to Portuguese residency. This week on Let's Move to Portugal, Josh and Kalie tackle a special Q&A session answering your burning questions about expat life, from navigating Portugal's real estate and immigration systems to pondering their next adventure. Tune in for insights, advice, and a peek into the future plans of our favorite expats.
What is up, expats and travelers alike? Welcome back to the Expats Everywhere presents Let's Move to Portugal podcast. Kalie, how you doing?
I don't know why I laugh every time, but it really does get me every time. I am doing well, besides
Kind of.
the obvious congestion going on in my nasal passage.
Yes, for those of you that are just listening and not viewing, Kalie is not pinching her nose, although it sounds like it.
I know, my nose is, and then for those of you who are actually viewing, you can see that I've got a little bit of that redness from all the nose blowing. Yeah, what is going on?
Well, our daughter is going on.
Yeah, that's
yes,
true.
she's had
That's
a cold and coughs and whatnot in our faces all the time.
Yeah, I know. You can't even avoid it. It's crazy. I mean, for a while it was allergies, I think, but this is a cold.
Yeah.
This is definitely different.
And my scratchy voice is very much due to screaming at the Porto-Benfica match. So
Yesterday,
my voice is not recovered yet. 5-0, let's go. Força Porto.
Yeah, what a great one. That was a lot of fun to watch. Very exciting.
I mean, from a Porto perspective, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a really special episode today that we're about to jump into. Basically, we have asked our patrons on Patreon to send us in questions so that we can put together a special Q&A podcast for all of our sweet listeners. So that's what we're doing here today, right?
Yes. So we just posted on Patreon. Thank you all of those who sent in questions, and we'll get to those in a little bit. But before, let's do a quick little update of what's going on with us, right?
Yeah, so kind of slowly got back into the swing of things last week after our trip to Sevilla, Soto Grande,
And Gibraltar.
Yeah. A whirlwind trip in about 4 days, 3 nights.
Yeah.
I feel like that's like a Price is Right trip.
4 days.
4 days, 3 nights.
How much is that going to be?
It's about $1,000. So, yeah. Speaking of money, we have a cost of living guide coming out. Not cost of living guide, but cost of living update.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think every year around this time, we log our expenses, everything that we spend for 30 days. And then we put that in video form. So it's different than I think like a cost of living, like how much would these things cost? We just log, we live our normal life and we log what that looks like so that you can see an authentic view of a couple with one child.
Yeah.
Because, kids are expensive. Jeez.
Yeah, listen, it adds up.
Yeah.
And it's not just only if you add it up, like it actually adds up.
So for those of you looking to move with kids, take that into consideration for sure. The school, the activities, all of that stuff that they do. But if it's just a couple, then you can omit that from what your budget is looking like when we talk about the different expenses that SIA has. And I'm talking about like school and like swimming lessons and ballet lessons and, the extracurriculars that the school does and that stuff.
It's all very affordable in the context of what it might be in the U.S. and Canada, England.
UK, yeah, definitely.
But yeah, it does add up. The reason that we do our videos like this is we felt like is a really good way to give you a glimpse of what the lifestyle is, because it's one thing to just have kind of like numbers on a website and just kind of saying, okay, rent is this and this is that and whatnot. But if you don't have context to kind of what that actually gets you, how many meals out does, 400 euros a month, not saying that was what we paid this month.
We don't even know. Yeah, we don't know. We don't tally it until the end. Yeah.
So, yes, we just finished that, logging it, and then we'll record the results. But, okay. So that's on the video side of things. The vertical community venture is moving forward, thankfully.
Yeah.
So we had a delay because of there was a I guess, what do you call it? A finding of, I'm losing words here.
Yeah.
We found asbestos, not us personally, but during the demolition, asbestos was discovered. That's the word I'm looking for. A discovery.
A discovery.
A discovery of asbestos. And to take care of that, you have to follow a legal process. We got the letter for the safe removal, and that happened on Thursday last week. We got the letter on Wednesday. The removal started on Thursday, Friday. So this week we're restarting demo and really gonna start mashing stuff up.
Yes, we will actually get to mash stuff up. That's what I'm looking
So we've
forward
been told.
to. So yeah, I hope she
It'll be
holds
like
true to that. I have
the
literally
only
for
process.
months been saying I cannot wait to throw a sledgehammer. So
Don't throw it.
What?
Swing it.
You're swing. What?
Yeah, you're gonna swing a sledgehammer.
I'm gonna throw, but I'm gonna hold on to it while I throw it.
Yes.
If that
Okay.
makes sense.
So that's kind of the update on vertical community videos. Are we ready to jump into this?
Yeah, I think
What do
so.
you think? Yeah. Okay. So first question.
Wait. Before
Okay.
before we go into the first question, I think just to give our listener.
That's what I was going to do. Go ahead.
Well, what were you going to say?
I was going to give some context.
Oh, well, okay. Let me hear your context. Let's see if it's the same as what I was going to say.
Kalie has randomly put together these questions. Maybe they were actually just put together in the order that they came in.
They are. They're
Yeah.
the exact order. I put a post on Patreon, and as the comments came in, I just copy and pasted it over to a document.
So all that to say, like, they're not in a particular order of, okay, we're talking about this topic, then this topic, then that topic. Fortunately, the first question is a very, very fun one.
Yeah, so we get to start with a fun one because obviously, as expected, there are technical questions that are asked that we would like to answer, and some
Yeah.
of them will be opinion or our experience on things. But there are technical questions in there, but there are some fun ones as well. So
Yeah.
we get to start off with a fun one.
Yeah, exactly. And Kalie's going to be reading the questions because the screen is to her on her side, and I don't read so good.
Is that why I was going to say?
I don't read so good.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you get to hear my nasally read. It kind of reminds me of that Friends episode with Phoebe.
Sure. It always reminds you of a Friends episode.
Everything goes back to a Friends episode.
And if we need to give you context, then we'll do that.
Yes.
Because there's some of them that there's a question stuck in a paragraph and it needs a little more context.
Right. So instead of reading the whole paragraph, we'll do the question and then context.
Okay.
But the first one was
Let's
just
get
questions, which
answering.
was great. So Veronica wrote, and she has actually 3 questions. So we'll start with just the first one.
Yeah.
What was the hardest thing to adapt to while living in Portugal as an American?
Okay. So
Boom.
yeah. So I read this morning. Kalie's probably had a lot more time to think about this. And it's hard for me actually to really think about what was the hardest thing to adapt to, because I think we've had so many abroad experiences at this point. It's always been difficult for me to think about, okay, how could we put together a culture shock video or something of that nature? Because I think we've had so many culture shocks over the past 15 years that nothing's really that shocking.
And a lot more extreme than what a European country would have to offer.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, we got broken in very, very softly when we moved to Madrid.
I don't know if I say very, very softly. I would say softly.
I mean, as
language was the shock there.
No, but as opposed to like moving to some of the other countries
Yes.
we ended up moving to.
Yes, this is true.
Yeah. So if you don't know, we've lived in Spain, South Korea, Saudi Arabia, Singapore, and now Portugal.
Right. So,
Yeah.
I mean, so are you saying you don't have anything?
Well,
I get asked this question a lot in my consultations.
okay, so mine would be tied up into, and it's very situational, it'd be tied up into the whole COVID thing. Because when the second lockdown happened here, that was rough. But that's not necessarily a culture shock thing or the hardest thing to adapt. Yeah, I mean, if I'm trying to answer that question specifically, it was much more situational than like living in Portugal as an American. So if
Yeah.
you've got something, please.
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of people talk about the bureaucracy, and I would say that no one ever says in their country, like, I love my government, and they work so efficiently, and the paperwork is so easy to go through. Everyone always complains about their own government in that sense, or, bureaucracy for their country. There might be a few out there that are okay, but for the most part, it's not easy in the U.S. either, but it's more familiar. So that's one thing that, you know how to navigate it a little bit. You know, maybe you have a network or contacts that you know who to go to. Whereas when you're working the bureaucracy side of things in Portugal, you have issues. It is different, and then you just don't know, where do I go? What do I do? I can't get in touch with with anyone. So I think that is a hard adaptation thing.
Yeah, let me add on to that because I think that is a very good one that you bring up.
Thank you.
I think the thing that we see and we feel personally is that the bureaucratic things that happen here might happen the same in the States for a foreigner, but because we're a foreigner living here, it feels like bigger. It feels more important. Like, oh no, if I mess this up, I'm going to get deported, or you know what I mean?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So I imagine that people would have that same feeling or experience living in the U.S.
Yeah, or anywhere. As a foreigner, you're trying to go through the proper documentation, or you're making sure that you got, this form filled out the right way for this appointment. And
I don't want to get this wrong because the consequences could be dire. And actually, we've known a few situations where the consequences have been dire for people.
Dire?
Well,
like
dire, not like life and death, but dire in the sense that they checked the wrong box and then did not
it changed things,
get NHR.
Yes, yeah. So you got to roll with those punches, I guess. Got to figure out what you're going to do then.
Yeah.
So I would say the bureaucracy side of things is one thing for adaptation. And then the other thing going on as far as like it being familiar, well, obviously the language is different, but thankfully compared to other countries, they have a high level of English. But the hardest thing I think I have actually two others. The next one would be when you move from your home country, wherever that might be, you have your creature comforts and you know how things work. So, for example, if we're going to talk about the U.S., I know if I need to get this product, I could just run over to Target, or, I go to this grocery store, or for me in Florida, Publix, right? I know.
Pub subs.
Yeah. When I go in there, I know what the layout is like of the store. I know that the store has what I'm looking for, things like that. So when you move, you have to relearn all of that stuff. All of that stuff is foreign to you. And sometimes it can be stressful and upsetting if you get here and you're like, I just want that product, whatever it might be, whether it's a certain moisturizer or it's a certain type of food, whatever it is. And you're like, I can't even find it. And it can be frustrating. So this is where it's a little bit, you got to give yourself a little bit of time to adapt and explore and figure out where your go-tos are so that you feel more comfortable and it is more like your experience wherever you came from, right? So
yeah, no, exactly. I mean, you kind of took me back to our time living in Madrid, where we were there for maybe 3 or 4 months, and I think both of us started to get like a desire to eat peanut butter. It's like we couldn't find peanut butter now. Much easier to find peanut butter now in all the grocery stores. But back then, like you could only get it at El Corte Inglés, right?
Yeah.
That's where
it's a premium. And there was like
premium.
One, right?
Yeah, one.
Well, there was one smooth and one chunky.
That's right.
Because remember, for us, that it was a bit of a culture shock going back to the States when we went to the grocery store for the first time and you had 20 options for peanut butters. And we were like, which one do we choose?
we had just moved back from South Korea, and Kalie's mom was like, go grab some peanut butter. And we literally stood in front of the aisle like.
From South Korea or from Spain?
It was South Korea.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah.
Because there I don't even know if we could get it. Maybe it was the same scenario. Like if you found it, it was
you
like
found
a
it
unicorn.
at like the American store, like the American product store.
Or someone brought it from the States or something.
Okay, do you have any more, or can we continue?
Yes, I would say the other adaptation thing to keep in mind is a lot of people want to come here and they want to assimilate and they want to learn the language, and so they think I'll live in a place that's a bit more local, which is a great thought process. However, it can be really difficult if you've never done anything like that before, so you might find it a bit isolating.
Yeah.
So it's better to move to a place that maybe has a more mix of expats or foreigners, at least at first.
To start,
to learn the language, to learn the culture, just learn what the new country is like, to network and have a community. And then at that point, if you wanted to, venture out into a bit more of a local setting, you can. But when you plop yourself right in the middle of nowhere, it can be really difficult because it could feel isolating. It could feel like you don't have a community and you can't communicate with anyone. So that's also something that could be hard to adapt.
Yeah. I think this is why you do the consultations.
Yeah. Okay, so then Veronica's next question is a bit more personal for us. Where is the next stop for our favorite expats? Thanks, Veronica.
That's very kind of you to say.
Are you thinking about your next move? And then in parentheses, she said, will it be Italy? Because we talked about Italy on the channel recently. So,
okay, so to answer the back end of the question, will it be Italy? I think one thing that we are interested in doing for the broad YouTube channel is to start making comparisons between Portugal and other countries that we have visited in Europe, to maybe give you all an indication of where you should potentially move in the future, or basically to have a bit of fun as well. I think coming up, we're going to have Portugal and Spain, that comparison,
definitely.
Portugal and France,
Yeah.
Germany. We've actually made a lot of trips over the past couple of years to all of those countries, like spent fairly significant time
Different
there.
cities,
Yeah.
different sizes of cities, which has been good.
Exactly.
So that's where Italy came from.
Yeah, that's why Italy was thrown in there, is because
So would it be Italy then?
No.
Oh, that's quick on.
No, I don't think so. I think that our next move, we've not really gone into deep conversations about this, because spoiler alert, whenever we talk about moving to a new place, we end up moving there, which is how we've lived in so many countries
It's
already.
like implanted in our head, and we're like, let's do that.
Well, I think it's like we look into it and then we find the challenges of it, and it's like, well, let's just go ahead and solve this puzzle. But like when you solve a puzzle like that, you end up getting a visa and you immigrate to a new place. So it's a bit of a mess. I think that we will end up moving somewhere drastically different than in Europe.
Okay,
but
all right.
just,
I was like, oh, okay.
But just somewhere drastically different than like the kind of normal France, Spain,
Yeah.
Italy, Portugal.
You're
Germany.
talking about like if we were to go to Ljubljana.
Yeah, I'm thinking
Slovenia,
Slovenia.
Slovakia. Because those were on our radar before Portugal as well. We really liked that area. It's
Yes.
colder though, colder.
It
There
is.
is that.
Yeah.
But definitely we are, we're working on a building that we want to live in. So we will be here for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, for sure.
And
I want to
then-
be here too. Like we actually discussed this past weekend. We spoke about how I really want to nail down Portuguese. So it's like in here. I can't even speak English well. Nail down Portuguese. So it's like really in my brain. And I feel like we both lost a lot of our Spanish.
Yes, yeah.
We never really like got Spanish fully. And I don't want to have that happen with Portuguese. I want to be able to like really know Portuguese and then be able to come back and forth from, Portugal to other places.
And then wherever we go, we'll just find the Portuguese community, get stuck into there.
Honestly, maybe.
We could.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
We're starting to understand, culture and society a bit better. So like to be abroad and be in that culture, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Like straddle the lines between the new culture we're in, Portuguese, expats, and also Americans.
Oh, wow, that's a lot of straddling.
No, but it'd
We
be
only have 2
fun.
legs. Okay, so then the other thing that we have to take into consideration will be schooling for Sia, because she'll be older as well. So we need to make sure that we have a good school for her and what that looks like. So
Yeah.
that could play a part too, where we go. But
Yeah.
Porto for the near future, right? For
Medium-
a while.
medium term.
future,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, yeah, we don't ever say like we're, putting down
Putting
roots or
roots, yeah.
anything. Okay, and then the last question that Veronica asked is, have any of your close friends or family members been thinking about moving to Portugal?
Not really.
No,
Not
That's an easy
seriously.
answer. No.
Not seriously. I mean, Kaylee's parents have talked about spending more time here, months at a time.
Yeah, like
Right.
they wouldn't do the visa. They might. I don't even know if they do like their 90 days on, 90 days off. Like that would probably be even too much. But like they'll be
Right.
here for maybe a month or two, because they did that a while ago. Their first visit was like a month.
Yeah.
And then it's pared down a little bit, mainly because my grandpa, my dad's a little older, so he needs to be a little closer to them. So
Saying this, my little sister might.
move to Portugal.
Yeah, maybe for a little bit of time.
It's all just been chatter, though,
Yeah.
not anything like concrete.
Correct.
Even friends too. But I think it's because we've just been doing this for so long that our friends are all like from the U.S. are all settled in what they've been doing, and I don't know.
And a lot of the friends we stay in touch with now are people that we've met while living abroad.
Abroad.
Yeah, because we all kind of get it. We all kind of get
Yeah.
it's maybe a little more transient, and you have to make effort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have been trying to talk a friend, and she's from South Africa. We met her in Korea.
Have you?
Yeah. Annie.
Shout out to Annie.
There's a lot of South Africans that move here, and actually her
Tons.
brother owns a place here, not in
That's right.
Porto, but
That's
and
right.
they've been wanting to at least visit, and so now they were thinking about it, and then she got pregnant, so that's a little bit on the back burner. I mean, now that they've got 2, but it's a possibility. So
Yep.
I've been trying to talk her into it.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Veronica, thanks for the question. Let's move on to Thomas's question. This one is more technical. We do have to give some context, but go ahead and read the question.
Okay, so our question is this: is this maybe more normal for reconstruction projects like ours, i.e. turning one original residency into 4 brand new apartments, or should we maybe should insist that we won't sign the final deed and turn over any monies until we can verify that truly the electricity and water do in fact work in our apartment? So obviously we need context, but go ahead.
Okay, so the kind of the backstory on this is that Thomas has purchased the property, and the property has just received the habitation license. So this is kind of the final step to where people are then officially allowed to move into the property. And they're having a final inspection on the apartment done before signing the final deed. And they found out that the electricity and the water are no longer active, and the builder will not turn them back on. To like prove that everything works properly.
They were told that it does work, but I guess they don't know if it does. So it's a little bit of a odd situation. I think that's not super unique, because generally there should be not a property manager, but like a management company that's in there, right? That's
like a project manager.
Yeah, project manager.
Yeah. I mean, yes and no. You can hire project managers. I mean, it's something that we've done for our project. Okay, so a little more context is that Thomas has asked their lawyer about this scenario, and she says that this scenario can happen, which we do know it has happened to someone else that we know that's in our Patreon community. Says that the lawyer assured him that after they sign the final deed and they pay, that the apartment has a 5-year guarantee, and the builder will make any necessary repairs if they come up.
Like a warranty, which, okay, I would say this. That is something that's common as well.
Yes.
However, I know someone who's in a situation who has that warranty. When she was living there for not too long, noticed that I think it was like the cabinets in her kitchen, something was like installed improperly. And so it was like it broke off practically. So it was like it wasn't her, but it was like installed properly. And the builder is poof, gone. Cannot get in touch with anyone. Can't get it fixed. So she has a warranty, but who does she contact?
Yeah, okay. So let's unpack this quickly, because I'm sure that this is not going to apply to very many people out there. However, it is something that you should consider, because I think there's a lot of value creation that you can do if you can kind of stomach the roller coaster of rehabilitating a property in Portugal. Okay, so the guarantees are quite normal, that there's like a 5-year guarantee. I think this scenario that Kalie just talked about highlights why you need to work with a company that has a history and is reputable. So like they're not going to be here today, gone tomorrow, that type of thing. Like you want a company that's got 10, 15, 20 more years of referrals and just history, so that they're not going to be history. The other thing is that you really got, Thomas, you really got to make sure that someone that you trust has actually seen that the water and electricity has worked. Like just taking someone's word is a bit risky, and it could cause serious delays, because anytime you have to apply for a new electric or new water hookup, that can take time.
Yeah,
like that's a point where Portuguese bureaucracy can get you.
Yeah.
And then that means that, okay, you have your final habitation license, but people are going to be able to move in legally, but they're not going to have water or electricity.
You can't actually live there, yeah.
So what's the point?
Yeah. So that's a tricky one. But then the second part of the question, he asked, will you leave the electricity and water on after everything is 100% complete, so that your buyers, he's asking about our project, your buyers can verify all electrical and water work properly, and if there are issues, that the repairs can be made before the final deed signing. So in our property.
Yeah, so currently our property, with the way it's been done, it's us on, for the whole building, it's us on the contract, and then as we approach the everything's going to be wired separately or plumbed separately. Everyone's going to have different water meters and electric meters, but as we approach the time to then turn things over, we will have a cutoff date, and we will have that third-party project manager
Yeah.
verify for the buyers that everything is good. And then we have that guarantee from the builder that if anything does break or whatever, that they can be contacted to make repairs.
Right. So
And
then
the owners can they don't have to contact us. They can contact the builder directly.
and at the time of the final deed signing, everything should be in their name, right? They'll have that stuff set up in their name, or will they sign
well, they'll
and
have
then
to
they
do it
set
after.
up?
Yeah,
So
they'll have to set it
because
up
they have to
after.
present that deed, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
but we will have documentation that it functions, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yep. So good luck with that, Thomas.
Yes.
That's a tricky one.
It is.
Okay, so then moving on, Wilfredo has asked, and I'm just going to read the questions. 2 questions here.
About taxes.
Yep. What do you see the pension cost to be? And is there any legislation pending or proposed? So we're talking about like NHR, right? NHR and pensions.
Yeah. Okay. So the first part, because there's kind of 2 parts to this question.
Yeah.
Excuse me. The first part is, and we're not tax experts, and this is why you should either like watch a video on someone that has talked to a tax expert, which we've done, or just make a consultation yourself with a couple people to figure it out. But pension costs now, if you don't have NHR, which is the non-habitual residence scheme, which gave favorable taxes, it should just be the same. Like whatever that income is from the pension should be the same, should be taxed the same as what a normal tax.
On the progressive scale,
on
right?
the progressive scale.
So, yeah.
So I can't give you a specific percentage
yeah.
or number that you're going to be taxed, because it just depends on what that number of income is.
Because with
that
NHR,
euro
it was a
amount.
flat tax, wasn't it? Pensions were taxed at 10%.
Yeah.
But now that NHR is gone, it just goes to as if it's on the normal scale.
Yep.
So it depends on how much comes in from your pension.
And I say exactly, meaning that's my understanding of it.
Yeah. And then the second question is, are there any market scenarios in the near future that will ease rent?
Well,
Oh,
sorry. The second part is there any legislation pending or proposed?
Oh,
Not that we've heard of. There is going to be an election actually next week, I think it is. And then we'll learn a little more about that. But nothing will happen really
till next year.
Because
they already
in
did the
terms of
budget.
tax.
Yeah, they already did the
exactly.
budget. So in the fall, they'll do the budget stuff.
Yeah. So what was done in 2023 is done. What's happening in 2024 is fixed. And then anything that changes in 2024 will actually be for next year's tax fiscal year, let's say 2025, right?
Right.
If you want to ask us our opinion, we have said this multiple times. We do believe that some form of NHR will come back.
Yeah.
I think, the politicians will have to see how things play out with getting rid of NHR and what that does with maybe the lack of high net worth individuals moving to Portugal and how that affects the books. They might bring it back.
Yeah. Could take a couple of years, though.
Yeah. Those that have NHR grandfathered in, they will get their full 10-year period and move forward in that way.
And then we'll see what there's murmurs of NHR 2.0, but what that is, we don't know. And a lot will happen. You'll get a little more perspective after the elections next week, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so then the second question is, are there any market scenarios in the near future that will ease rental market pressure?
Okay. So I would say yes, in a way. And I'll let Kalie chime in as well. She's nodding her head vigorously.
Not vigorously, just
normally. Yeah, just a little. Why are you scrolling away?
Oh, sorry.
So I think in terms of market, what's happening in the market, I think that we saw a period around COVID, maybe it was like an 18-month period, where projects were really, really slowed down. And then we had some supply chain issues, which also slowed projects down. I think those projects that had been started like 2019, 2020, 2021 even, those are now finishing. So that inventory is going to come on the market. Now, it is going to arrive on the market, and people being the investors or owners, are going to price it at what the market rate is now. But if things sit on the market too long, right, then it's going to start to ease and bring the prices down. So what I see happening is I believe personally that we're at the top of the rental market in the major cities. I don't see any possible way that rents could get higher. So I believe that we'll start to see rents come down over the next few quarters, and they need to.
It's a supply and demand thing, right? I mean,
Yeah, and also with, I don't want to say actually with NHR ending that demand has dried up. I think that for whatever reason, maybe demand among Americans has dried up, but among
I don't know.
other
Dried up feels a little
not
harsh.
dried up. I should not
Yeah,
say
that
dried up.
seems
You're
like-
right.
yeah.
You're right. Right. Maybe it's the interest has slowed a little bit, or
Worries have
maybe
set
like
in.
maybe
Yeah.
like you in particular, you're looking at it like, well, there's possibly other places I could go because of more favorable taxes, or I'll be able to keep more of my money, essentially. But I think that there are plenty of other people from other countries that are still moving here at the same rates to where the demand is going to stay fairly stable. Now, those people from those countries, are they going to be able to pay the market value or market price the way it is today? I don't know. So that's why I think that prices are going to drop.
Right. It just seems like there is more is coming out because we've just had this shortage of long-term rentals for a long time. And now stuff's being renovated and being finished and finalized. So we are seeing the market having more.
Yeah.
So like you said, again, it's a simple supply and demand. Even if demand stays the same, at least there's going to be more on the market. So prices can't continue to go up, either stabilize or drop a little bit. Are we going to see a huge drop? I don't think so. Not a huge drop in the cities, but.
Well, yeah, you also brought up a good point that reminded me of the legislation that came through that actually we saw specifically, like a letter arrived to us because there was a piece of legislation where, and this is with the Mais Habitação Act, Mais Habitação, so more habitation. This act was created to incentivize more long-term rentals to help ease the price of what the market currently is. So in this, we received a letter basically saying like, hey, we've noticed that your property has been vacant
yeah.
for a certain period of time. You have until this date to act, or we will tax you at this new tax rate. Which is something that Kalie and I have been like banging a drum about for a while.
Yeah, because there's so much just sitting there.
So what we had to do is we had to, at the camera, at the town hall, we had to let them know like, hey, we are actively rehabilitating our building. So please, please don't tax us.
Yeah, that's why no one's living there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you just had to submit some forms and then it was fine. But yes, this is something that we've been saying that they should do because you get so much, tax a lot when you buy a place, right? So then the yearly taxes are quite low. So people could just sit on a place and you see so much that needs to be renovated or it's just crumbling because no one's doing anything about it. So now the government's saying, okay, you got to do something about this.
Yep.
Which is good. So that's also going to help.
Very good.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on.
Moving on.
Okay.
That's it.
So Eugene, he's talking about IMA. IMA is the new CEF. Woohoo. Fun stuff.
And if you don't know who CEF is, that's the Immigration Authority.
Yep.
Yeah.
So he has two questions, and then we'll give you some context. The first one is, do you have any suggestions on how folks in that situation, such as a family, should operate? So when he's talking about that, he is having a hard time getting, just with Portuguese immigration in general, like the system. And this is something that's just been tough for everyone. Even when it was CEF and now it's IMA, and then they had switchover, and it was a bit of a disaster. Even though they've been talking about the switchover for over a year, when the switchover happened, it was just like a shock, which is weird because it's like everyone knew this was happening. So how do you not know what to do? But CEF was so backed up, and they just passed on all this backed up stuff to IMA. So the thing is, the CEF still exists, but they don't process the visas anymore. They're more of border control because they were that as well, but they're doing visas too. So they decided to move the border, or keep the border with CEF, and then move the visa processing to IMA. So IMA is running efficiently at, I would say, the current stuff, but the stuff that was handed over, the switchover, has been a little bit of a disaster.
Things have been lost.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like applications have just vanished.
Now, that being said, they're also not very responsive. So if you're trying to get in touch with
Seth
them.
wasn't either.
Seth wasn't either, yeah. Excuse me. So if you're trying to get in touch with IMA, it's really, really difficult. So he's saying that, it's not discussed enough about how the Portuguese immigration system is and the shift to IMA. And that, let's see, there's not any appointments. Like when you try to log in, you can't get any appointments, right?
I have an opinion on this.
What's your opinion?
This is an opinion. This is not based on any research or any data or statements from politicians. I think that it's intentional. I think that they're intentionally slowing immigration right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, so they unlock a certain amount of appointments and they can just choose to not unlock any.
That's it.
Yeah. So, and it could be.
That's why I think
you think it's just because they are slowing immigration, or they're trying to catch up to the backup?
I think that they're just trying to slow things down to figure out what they've got here. And just like, okay, what's happened?
Because it was too much of like an overwhelming burst the past couple of years, and they weren't prepared for it.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. I really do. Again, this is just my opinion, but the other thing is like, it's been documented that both Seth and IMA are understaffed for the amount of like applications that they get and how they can normally process them. So it's no surprise that they aren't answering people's calls. Like they have a crazy amount of I saw like a news article about how many calls they received a day. And by received, I mean like how many times the phone rang, essentially, not how many times it was picked up. Yeah. It was crazy. It was like impossible to.
It was like, wasn't it like 30,000 or something
ridiculous
something like that?
Crazy. Like you would legitimately have to have a call center. And
they
it
don't.
Just doesn't function like that.
They don't. And I would say overall too, they're government workers. So it's just, I don't know, it doesn't bother them if they process a certain amount, if they don't have quotas or anything, right? So, or it doesn't seem like they do. So it's like,
they might not have personal quotas.
Maybe
there's a national quota.
They can be slow though. And it is what it is.
Yeah.
So the unfortunate thing is getting through. I mean, you kind of just have to check, you create a login to get an appointment. You just have to check, because what they do is they unlock at certain times and certain time frames out, and it's very like variable when they do that. Because even I know someone talked to VFS and they were like, what is the schedule? Is there a schedule of when they unlock? And VFS was even saying, well, we don't even know when they're going to give them to us. They unlock it for us.
Yeah.
And how much of that is just kind of finger pointing, who knows? But you kind of just have to check at several times a day, different times of days. I mean, it's a pain. And I think the question, or someone had mentioned in the comment to this, is, would a lawyer help? Lawyers are in the same boat. Yeah. I mean,
they don't have like a special hotline to dial.
None of them do. No company does, no lawyer. They're just doing it regularly to try to find you something. So that's why, they can tend to snatch it, I guess, a little better than if you just tried yourself, and then you don't have to have the headache of doing it yourself.
Yeah.
So it's just a thing. I don't know. And I mean, it gets better once you're here. I mean, obviously, once you get past that step, and once you have your residency card, like for us, right? We had our first 2 years, we moved, so we had to change our address, and so we had to do an in-person appointment with Seth. So we actually had a lawyer help us with that, because it was like, you make the appointment, and it was a pain for him, but he made the appointment, and we changed that. But then other than that, we didn't have to do anything. So if we wouldn't have moved, we would have had 2 years of nothing, and then the renewal was online for us. So now it's like we're 3 years and we shouldn't have to do anything, until we move and change our address and everything. So once you get the residency, it's not as bad. It's just
smoother sailing.
Smoother
sailing.
So yeah, it's a pain. But then the second question that Eugene has is, should this change the calculus for individuals looking to move?
I mean, I would say no, but it just depends on how bad you want to move to Portugal. Like, if you're not that interested in going through this, like let's say if the lemon's not worth the squeeze, if that makes sense, then yeah, maybe you need to look at somewhere else. But I think Portugal is absolutely worth kind of going through this bureaucratic stuff up front to be able to live here and enjoy it. But to some people, it's not.
It's not. It's a pain. All right, I stepped away to blow my nose because I felt like it was like really getting clogged in there.
It was.
I know. It sounded really bad. But I would say this, depending on what country
Say it.
Well, I am now that I can breathe a little better. Depending on what country you're going to, you're going to have this as well. I mean, we've moved around a lot.
Yeah.
And it depends on if anyone's assisting you, like if you're going with a specific job or you're trying to do it yourself.
Yes.
It's obviously easier if you have a company that you're working for because they help you with all of this.
Yeah.
But if you're doing it yourself, then it is tricky in a lot of places, especially if you're dealing with different languages and, again, different cultures. So some places are easier than others, but not every place, I'd say, is easy. Most are hard to do the visa process, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they're all still DIY. Or I shouldn't say all. Portugal is still DIY. You could still do it yourself. It just depends on if you want to.
Yeah, no, you can. But I'm just saying, like, comparing to different countries, like
I wouldn't have wanted
visa
to do
process.
Korea or Saudi.
On your own.
Singapore would have been okay. But yeah, Korea or
We
Saudi
did
would have been a
Spain
mess.
on our own too.
Yeah, Spain wasn't bad at all.
But it was the same, like,
It was the same.
same
Actually,
process.
the worst thing about Spain was post arrival. Right,
Because they're not so nice with all that stuff with the.
Well, it wasn't just that, but it's like they're notoriously heavily bureaucratic about like documentation, about having your papers in order, and if you don't, you're sent to the back of the line.
To go get it, yeah.
It's like when you're in Philly and you're going to order a cheesesteak, and if you get up to the line at one of the big like famous places and you start to stutter, they just send you to the back of the line.
Yeah.
Like try again in a few hours.
It's like also too like that Seinfeld. I don't even watch Seinfeld much because I'm a Friends fan, but isn't that like No Soup for You? Isn't that?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think it was off the cheesesteak, guys, but yeah.
Probably. Right. Yes.
The
So
soup Nazi.
Yeah. So that is difficult.
All right. Roll on to Devin's question, which is kind of piggybacking off of Eugene's.
Yeah, it was. He commented as an add-on. I guess my add-on question to yours would be: is it becoming almost a default that you need to hire someone these days?
No.
Yeah.
And not by default. I think that there are times when you can hire people for specific parts of the process. Like Kalie said, when we did the address change or needed to do the address change, it was easier for us to reach out to a lawyer and get that done. But
that was also more because we didn't have the time or didn't want to sit there and try to get the appointment, So it's time or money, really, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Do you want to bang your head against the wall trying to get in touch with someone, or you just want to pay to have someone else do that for you?
And we ended up having to travel to Braga to do it.
Yeah.
And they weren't as busy.
Right. Yeah. That's where we got it. But yeah, it's not necessary. It depends, though.
All right. John has a fun, non-technical question.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so John is currently living in Portugal, and he says, thoughts on the new self-checkouts in the stores? I'm getting to know the staff better as they help me. So this is becoming more popular, is they're taking away the workers, and they're putting in a lot more self-checkout machines.
Yeah, so like if you go to a grocery store and normally there'd be like, let's say 4 lines, there might be 2 with active workers, and then there's maybe 3 or 4 of the self-checkouts.
It depends on how comfortable you are.
It depends. Well, I tell you the one thing, I'm always a little nervous about going to the self-checkouts when there's something that's on discount, because I'm like, is it going to register it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because if it doesn't register it, then having to figure that out becomes more difficult than being able to say to the person that's checking us out, like, hey, there's a discount on this.
Yeah, or generally the person catches it, right? Because like the
Or they
sticker
catch it, yeah.
would say it.
Yeah.
Yes, I would. Yeah. It's funny because it's like they should be faster, but sometimes they end up being longer because something goes wrong.
When you do your self-checkout.
When you do, because something goes wrong. You know,
Yeah.
or it's like you scan it and then you set it there and it's like it's not there.
Put the item in the bag.
It is there.
It's in the bag.
So you lift it up and then put it back down.
But the workers are pretty good about popping over and like hitting their code and
and
feel like everything's good.
And a lot of them do have language changes, so you could change it to English or French if you,
Spanish, yeah.
Yep. So that is helpful. But yeah, we do a mix, I'd say.
Yep.
If it's a big run, sometimes it's just easier and actually faster to have a person do it, because then I can organize how it comes out of the basket and how it goes into our bags. So stuff doesn't get scrunched.
Yeah, if I've got a few items, I'll do the self checkout.
Yeah, definitely,
for
definitely.
Sure.
Or like there's a really big continent at the mall by the stadium, and that line gets
Which gets
so
really busy.
long. But on the other side, where the line goes in for like the people to check out, there is the self checkout, and it's really short, and not many people use it. So even if I have a little bit more, I go there because it's just so much faster.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's
Fun
it's
question,
good.
John. Thanks.
That is a good one. Yes. Okay. So moving on with Jason, I'm still very interested in how overseas rental income is treated post NHR. I assume it is taxed as income, but was wondering about exemptions, expenses, etc.
This is really a question for a tax specialist. If I can recall, overseas rental income is going to first get treated in the country where the property is. And then when you claim the income, there's a percentage of for deductions that will happen. I want to say that, no, I shouldn't even say. If it's here, well, because like if the rental property's here, then essentially it'll get taxed like half of the rent they will say is an expense, and then you're going to get taxed on the other half, right? So usually, like, let's say if it pushes your tax bracket into the top end, so the 48%, it'll be taxed like 24. So if gross rents are 1,000, half of that is 500, and then you're going to be taxed 48 on that 500, not 48 on that 1,000. Yeah, without a calculator, I wouldn't know what that is. I think it's 240.
But I think all that to
it's
say
240.
is if you have rental income in a different country like the US or the UK, you do get taxed here in Portugal on that rental income, correct?
Yeah, but I don't know what the exemptions and expenses are because I don't think they use the same formula.
So, but
Because essentially, like, if you're taxed first in your home country, let's come at this from an American perspective because the property's in the U.S. If you're taxed first there, depending on how you where you file first, you've already taken the exemptions.
okay, yeah.
To figure out what the income is. My understanding is the way they look at income here is they look at what the gross is. So if you charge 1,000, they're saying half of it is expenses. Then they tax you on that other half.
So you're getting taxed on 500 rather than 1,000.
That's my understanding.
Yeah. That's a tricky one. So if you were like a financial advisor, any of our listeners, we do have a financial advisor who could set you up before you make the move, or at least have a consultation with him to see what would be best for your unique situation on how you should set things up so you can minimize your taxes.
Yeah.
So you can always email us. info@expatseverywhere.com is my email if you want me to make an introduction to a financial advisor.
Yeah, I mean, now I'm just sitting here second guessing it because we had also seen where the income tax on ALs, which is the short-term rentals, was at 7%, while long-term was 23%.
Right.
So that's different than even the other explanation I got about income taxes falling within your personal income.
But this is about overseas ones. So if someone's using like rental incomes as passive income,
yeah,
they want to maybe know how much they can take away after, like,
I would, yeah, okay. Just forget everything I said, but speak to a tax person about it.
We're not too sure about that one, but a tax professional.
I mean, I can tell you,
advisor.
I can tell you what happens. Like what happens to us is that when we file our taxes, we have a U.S. tax specialist, like expat tax specialist, and our local Portuguese tax person, and they communicate about where the source of income is derived. And one of the sources of income we have is rental income from the U.S. So that would be the overseas rental income you're discussing. And the reason that that's important is because it does fall into a certain tax criteria, certainly under NHR. So, active income gets taxed different than pensions, gets taxed different than whatever. So that is why it's important, because not all of this stuff under NHR is aggregated and thrown into the progressive scale.
Right.
Right. So post NHR, speak to someone,
but
because
even
we don't
for
have
us,
experience of that yet.
But even for us, since we use accountants, we don't fully know exactly
see it.
how it works because we don't see it, right?
Exactly.
I mean, they give us the forms and everything, but we don't necessarily analyze it to see what that looks like. We're like, you pay them to, you trust them, and go from there.
Yeah.
But we have all those resources. If anyone, listener, if you want any of those resources, you could contact us for it.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and move on. David and Pauline. Hi, guys. One topic we can't seem to find an answer to is the concept of what we call renter's insurance in the U.S. We've heard that this isn't a thing in Portugal or that it's up to the renter. Any thoughts? Do you have coverage? Do you have it? Coverage limits, costs, etc.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard even in the States of actual renters getting renter's insurance as opposed to it being the landlord getting renter's insurance.
You can get your own.
Yeah, so it does exist here.
It's not common.
It's not common at all, but you can get insurance on the contents of the property, right?
Like the inside part, like the stuff inside.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think. I don't know anybody actually that's picked up specifically renter's insurance, but I'm pretty sure that the product exists.
Yes, it definitely exists. I've seen it before. I don't know how much it is. It's just not very common for people to do. I think also too, Portugal's quite tenant friendly. So I don't know if that plays a little bit into it as far as whether you need it or not. But let's talk about the video that we have coming out. Remember Jesus he mentioned that they had the power surge and that was the stuff that was fried was covered. Was that by his landlord or was that by the insurance of the property?
We didn't go into that. I'm assuming that it was by the property insurance.
Right. So
but yeah.
He mentions this, the video that's coming out on Saturday. Yeah. He lives in Porto, and long story short, because you could listen to it a bit more there, they had it was a power surge.
Yeah.
And it fried a couple of their electronics that were plugged in. And so insurance, they took them and they repaired them and gave them back.
Yes.
And that was probably insurance.
Yes.
And they're renters.
Yes, they are. Yep.
Exactly. But that was probably because the landlord had insurance.
Yeah.
But personally, having your own insurance, like renters as a renter, it's just not very common here. No. So knowing what the coverage is and the costs, it's hard to say.
I'm almost certain that it's not going to be that expensive. Like comparing it to North American standards, it will not be that expensive.
Insurance in general for anything
is quite affordable here. Yeah.
We should probably look into see if there's any companies around that could do that.
Yeah.
We might actually have affiliations with some who do it. We just don't know, like MetLife or something.
MetLife, yeah. MetLife has a lot of specialized stuff, so
They might have it, yeah. So we'll explore that.
Yep.
Okay, Devin. Now we got a fun one. Well,
I think it's a very quick, easy answer too.
Kind of random. Devin, where can we find ping pong tables in Porto?
First thought that popped to mind was Decathlon.
Oh, you mean, like to actually buy it or to go play somewhere?
I would think to buy it.
Oh, I was thinking to go play somewhere.
If we're talking about just to play somewhere, I haven't actually seen street ping pong tables here.
No, they don't have them.
Like when we lived in Madrid, it seemed like they were everywhere.
They were like
metal.
Yeah,
the net was metal.
To be outside.
Yeah, outdoor ping pong tables.
No, I've not seen that anywhere.
No.
Okay, so you're talking about buying. You're saying Decathlon.
I'm assuming that he's talking about buying.
Okay, so Devin, if you're talking about buying, Decathlon, but definitely online.
Amazon.
Online, yeah, Amazon, and get that delivered so you don't have to lug it. But if you're talking about around town, there are some
rec centers,
billiards places too.
Billiards, yeah.
I think that some of those billiards places. We just got a phone call. That's weird. I thought I put my phone on Do Not Disturb. I did. That went through. Anyway, there are billiards places, and I think that some of those would have it. Or that indoor mini golf place. Did they have ping pong, or they just had foosball?
I think that foosball and air hockey.
So that's what I would say is ping pong is a little less common. It's more common to see foosball. Like if you're going to see anything, like it's going to be the little foosball guys, the little soccer players, and then maybe something like air hockey or billiards.
Yeah.
But yeah, they do exist, both buying and going to.
Yeah, exactly.
They're just not as common.
All right, Sarah, can you compare Portugal to other EU countries like Spain and France as far as cost of living and quality of life? With NHR going away and taxes, economy, things changing, maybe it's time to look around at other options. Yeah, so this is a very, very long question to unpack, and we're going to do that in video form. So we can compare Portugal with other European countries, and we will do it as we did with Italy. So upcoming on the YouTube channel, we will do Spain, France, Germany. Yeah.
Yeah,
right?
but if we just want to give a general answer,
General
overall,
answer, Portugal's still a bit cheaper, especially if you're talking about living
cost
in
of living, yeah.
the secondary, tertiary cities, notwithstanding Lisbon. Lisbon's right up there now with a lot of the bigger European cities. So there's that. Quality of life, though, like if you're looking for a slower paced quality of life, it's high. Safety is really high compared to, like, let's say Paris. Madrid's relatively safe. A lot more pickpocketing that you'd have to worry about there as opposed to here in Portugal. What else quality of life wise?
I mean,
I think comparing
air
those,
quality, like something is another thing. Like when we talk about Italy, in the northern part of Italy, they have air quality pollution issues.
Spain has some problems.
Yeah.
France has some problems.
You don't see much of that in Portugal. The air quality is a little better.
Yeah.
But overall, cost of living still seems to be better. I mean, taxes are high in most European
That's
countries
it.
anyway.
Yes.
So Europe just has high taxes.
Yep.
So I guess a lot would depend on if there is any sort of scheme that you get in a different country that you qualify for, to look into that. But then also seeing what the percentage is actually like that's different. Because when we were doing Italy, it was such a small amount, like, 45 versus 48 at the top end.
Yeah.
Right? So how much of a hit, like it's already high anyway in both. So is that 3%, maybe you choose where you want to live over that 3% being an issue.
Yeah. And I was going to say regarding France, I think France has a good pensioner tax scheme. So they have lower taxes, I think, for pensioners. I don't believe Spain has anything like that. But yeah, I completely agree with what Kalie's saying regarding kind of Western European taxes. The further east you move in Europe, you tend to find better tax situations. But, then you're having to live in some places maybe that aren't as sexy.
Aren't as developed. And actually now,
like romantic. And,
yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean?
But even with Bulgaria and Romania joining the EU, Croatia, all that stuff recently, or coming up at least, those countries might see taxes rise as well, right?
Yeah.
They're part of the EU. So some of those places that are known for a little...
They could see that, and they could see cost of living rise.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like maybe get into those places now before that stuff happens. We'll see, because it's probably inevitable. But I would say, too, that we have a company, Holborn Assets, that's why we were in Spain. Yeah. And so as we diversify and we get more into different countries, we have an affiliation now with a company who can help with...
And by more into different countries, you mean back into talking more diversely about countries?
No, I'm talking about like...
No, like on our channel, we've got hundreds of videos about countries not named Portugal.
That's how Expats Everywhere started, right? Hence the name Expats Everywhere. And then it really honed in on Portugal when we moved here.
Yeah.
And the interest that rose. So now getting back out into that. So we have affiliates now that can help with different countries and help answer these questions and these tax questions.
Yeah.
So that's why we were in Spain doing a couple of videos. So those will be coming out soon as well.
That's right.
So again, if you're looking
Working on them now.
Yeah, if you're looking for some tax info from other countries that aren't Portugal, contact us and we'll put you in touch with people.
Yep. All right, last question is from Michelle, and this is definitely a Kalie one because it's talking about the public health care insurance process. Not really insurance, though.
Just getting into the healthcare system. So the question is, I would like to know the process of getting public health insurance. So then she writes a little bit of a paragraph, but essentially she has private insurance, but now that she's here, she wants to know how to get into the public system. And it's a little tricky because what you have to do is after you finalize your residency, or for her, she has Spanish citizenship, so her residency is a little different than if you come in on the D78. But either way, you're registered, you have your residency here, you have your card, and at that point, you could get your UTENT or your SNS, which is your health care number. This gets you into the public system. So you want to get this for the public hospitals, clinics, pharmacies, everything like that. It helps with costs as well for certain things. So to get that, it is all dependent on where you live. So you have to go to your local Saúde. What would that be? Like your local
Center of Health.
Center of Health. Yeah.
Health center.
Your local health center, and it is pegged to where you live. So here, you've talked about like the witnesses and stuff. That's if you need, like if you go to your freguesia, then that's to prove that you live there. So you can either do the witnesses or you can take your landlord, the contract, and things like that. But that's to prove that you live in that certain location. But to get your tent, you should be able to you have to see where you're zoned, where your housing contract is, where you're zoned, and that's where you go to your health center. Now, the thing is they don't always process it there. They actually move around who's processing it at the time. This is where it gets tricky because They move around who's processing it. I think to take the load off of, so like it's not one clinic.
Administrative load.
Yeah, the administrative load. So it's not one clinic that's always doing it, so it moves around. So this is where it's like, I don't know where it is. So that's why if you go to the zoned health clinic that you are part of, you can find out where is it currently being processed. And generally, they'll give you information with an email address, and you send in. You have to have proof of residency and such, and they'll ask you certain documentation that you can email, but you might be sent to go there in person. So it's a kind of a moving target.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't make it easy for you.
Fun times.
But the best thing you could do, the first step is to wherever you're zoned, wherever is your local health center, go there first and ask them, how do I get this process? And either they might do it for you there, or they'll tell you where to go from there and where it's at the current time. But you have to have your residency, so make sure you have your residency card and everything. They used to do temporary UTEDs, but it's not something that's super common anymore. So once you finalize your residency, you could get that. Yes.
All right. Big shout out to our patrons. Thank you so much. Our patrons on Patreon. And if you want to become a patron, go to patreon.com/ExpatsEverywhere. We'd love to have you in our community over there. We thank you all so much. This has been Expats Everywhere Presents Let's Move to Portugal podcast, a special edition Q&A. I'm Josh.
And I'm Kalie.
Now, let's get moving.
Bye.
Bye.